Story 1.
The security cameras at Mike's convenience weren't working that night. Our manager, Tony, had been promising to fix them for weeks. But somehow it never happened. I wouldn't have taken the New Year's Eve shift if I'd known about the cameras. But I needed the holiday pay. My student loans weren't going to pay themselves. The store was dead quiet. Most people were already at parties or home with their families. I was stuck here until midnight, alone with the humming fluorescent lights and the endless loop of outdated pop songs playing through the speakers. At 11:40 p.m., I was restocking the candy aisle when the door chime rang. Through the store window, I could see an old Chevrolet Impala parked right in front of the entrance, its engine still running. The customer was a middle-aged woman wearing an expensive-looking black coat. Something about her seemed off. She moved too slowly, methodically checking each aisle, but never actually picking anything up. "Can I help you find something?" I called out, trying to sound cheerful. She didn't respond. I went back to restocking, but kept glancing at her through the security mirrors. She continued wandering the aisles, always staying just out of my direct line of sight. The hair on the back of my neck stood up when I realized she was moving in a pattern, getting closer to the counter with each loop. At 11:50 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from my boyfriend, "Happy New Year, baby, wish you were here." I smiled and started typing a response when I heard a thud from the back of the store. I looked up. The woman was gone. "Hello?" I called out. No response. The store suddenly felt much colder. I walked to the back, checking each aisle. Nothing. But when I reached the storage room door, I noticed it was slightly ajar. I never left that door open. My hand trembled as I pushed it open. The storage room was pitch black. I fumbled for the light switch, but it wasn't working. Using my phone's flashlight, I scanned the room. Boxes were scattered everywhere, which was strange because I'd organized them just hours ago. That's when I heard the front door chime again. I spun around and rushed back to the front. The Impala was still there, engine running. But now there were two more cars parked beside it. A white van and a pickup truck. 3 men in dark clothes were walking through the aisles, spreading out across the store. "I'm sorry, but we're closing in 5 minutes," I announced, my voice shaking. None of them responded. My phone was on the counter. I needed to get to it. As I moved toward the front, I heard footsteps behind me. The woman had reappeared, blocking my path to the exit. "Just take what you want," I said, backing away. "The safe's on a time lock anyway." The woman smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. "We're not here for money, Sarah." They knew my name. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. I glanced at the counter. My phone was gone. Suddenly, all the lights in the store went out. In the darkness, I heard them moving closer. I ducked behind a shelf and crawled toward the back office. If I could get to the emergency exit. The sound of breaking glass made me freeze. Then came shouting, lots of it. Flashlights swept across the store. "Police! Hands where we can see them!" I stayed hidden until I heard a familiar voice. "Sarah? Sarah, are you okay?" It was Officer Rodriguez, our regular beat cop. He helped me up as other officers swarmed the store. The woman and one of the men were in handcuffs, but the others had escaped. Later, Rodriguez explained everything. The woman had been following me for days. Security cameras at other stores had caught her watching me, learning my schedule. They found zip ties, duct tape, and surgical tools in the white van. The only reason the police arrived was because Tony had finally fixed something. The silent alarm. He'd installed it that morning and forgot to tell me. The button was under the counter, and when the woman had taken my phone, she'd accidentally pressed it. I quit that night. But sometimes, when I pass a convenience store late at night, I can't help but look through window or through conduit. Bindar. Loiter the windows to check on the clerk working alone inside. They never caught the other two men. And I've started noticing a black Impala in my neighborhood lately, always parked just far enough away that I can't read the license plate.
Story 2.
I never thought I'd be the nosy neighbor type, but after what happened last New Year's Eve, I'm glad I was paying attention. My wife was visiting her sister in Florida with our kids, and I had to stay behind because of work deadlines. Our street was unusually quiet that night. Most people were either out celebrating or had left town for the holidays. I was sitting in my home office trying to finish a project when I noticed this weird blinking red light in Mr. Peterson's second floor window. Now, Mr. Peterson was in his late 70s and lived alone since his wife passed. He'd mentioned going to his daughter's place for the holidays, so his house should have been empty. The light kept blinking every 30 seconds like clockwork. I tried to focus on my work, but something about that light bugged me. Mr. Peterson was old school. He didn't even own a smartphone. What could be blinking in his empty house? I called his daughter's number. We had it for emergencies. "Oh yeah, Dad's here with us in Sacramento," she said. "Has been since Christmas." I described the light. She had no idea what it could be. That's when my Ring doorbell app notified me of movement on my porch. I checked the video feed. Nothing there, but in the background I could see another blinking light. This time in the Martinez's window across the street. My hands started shaking as I turned off all the lights in my house. In the darkness I could see more blinking lights. At least 4 houses had them. I called the police non-emergency line. The dispatcher said they'd send someone to check it out, but it was New Year's Eve. It might take a while. While waiting, I kept watching the lights. They seemed to be synchronized now. I grabbed my Canon camera with the zoom lens and started taking photos. Through the lens, I could finally see what was causing the lights. Small cameras mounted inside the windows. Professional-looking ones. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Stop taking pictures, David." I nearly dropped the phone. The voice was distorted, electronic. "How did you... Put the camera down. This doesn't concern you." They hung up. I closed all my blinds and called 911 this time. As I was explaining the situation, my laptop suddenly turned on by itself. The screen showed a video feed of me from multiple angles. My house was bugged too. The front door, the back door, the garage, my office, even the attic. A message popped up on screen. "Check your email." With trembling hands, I opened my inbox. There was one new message with a video attachment. It showed me and my family over the past 3 months, coming and going, having dinner, playing in the yard. Another message appeared on screen. "Delete the photos you just took, or these videos go public." I deleted them. "Good, now go to bed, forget about tonight." Like hell I would. I grabbed my phone and ran out of the house. I drove to the police station. No way I was doing this over the phone. The cops were skeptical until I showed them the email and the threatening message. They sent 3 cars to the neighborhood. What they found was insane. Every empty house on our street, 6 total, had been rigged with cameras. They were all connected to some sophisticated wireless network. The really creepy part, the cameras weren't just watching the houses. They were specifically positioned to record everyone's daily routines, school schedules, work hours, when people got groceries. They found a small transmitter in my attic. Someone had been up there, in my house. It took weeks of investigation, but they finally figured it out. A home security company had been offering free system installations in our neighborhood. Except it wasn't a real company. They were mapping out the entire neighborhood's patterns. 2 houses in our area had been robbed in the past month. The thieves knew exactly when people would be away and for how long. They never caught the people behind it. The cameras were bought with stolen credit cards, and the security company was a ghost. The police swept my house and removed all the cameras, but I still check for blinking lights every night. My wife wanted to move, but I refused. This is our home. But now we have a real security system, and I always keep my blinds closed on New Year's Eve.
Story 3.
Working the night shift at a gas station isn't for everyone, but when you need money for college, you take what you can get. Shell paid better than most places, and the night shift differential was decent. Usually nothing interesting happens, just truckers getting coffee and tired families on road trips. Last New Year's Eve changed everything. My shift started at 8 p.m. My manager, Rick, was apologetic about scheduling me, but someone had to work. The station was one of those bigger ones, right off 95. We had a small convenience store, 6 pumps, and a little Subway that closed at 6. Everything was normal until about 10:30 p.m. A black SUV pulled up to pump 4. The driver didn't get out, just sat there with the engine running. After 5 minutes, I used the intercom. "Need help with the pump, sir?" No response. I watched through the security monitor. The SUV's windows were heavily tinted, illegal in Virginia. Finally, the driver got out. Tall guy, wearing a thick winter coat despite it being pretty mild for December. He walked to the store, but instead of coming in, he just stood there, looking at his phone, then looking at me, then back at his phone. My stomach tightened. Something wasn't right. I texted my boyfriend. "At work. Guy acting weird outside. Call me in 5 minutes?" He called immediately. While I was on the phone, the guy finally walked away, got in his SUV, and left, without getting gas. "You okay?" Jake asked. "Yeah, just paranoid, I guess." 30 minutes later, a red pickup truck pulled in. The driver was a woman, maybe in her 40s. She came in to pay for gas. "Pump 3, she said, handing me a credit card. The card was declined. "Sorry, it's not working. Do you have another?" She tried 3 more cards. All declined. "That's impossible," she said. "I just used this one an hour ago." She was getting agitated. Then her phone rang. Her whole demeanor changed after answering it. "Never mind," she said quickly, grabbing her cards. "I'll try another station." As she hurried out, I noticed her looking toward the highway, like she was signaling someone. By midnight, I'd had 6 more customers with declined cards. All acted weird. All left quickly after phone calls. I called Rick. "Credit card system's working fine on my end," he said. "But stay alert. 2 other stations reported similar stuff tonight." That's when the power went out. Emergency lights kicked in, but the pumps were down. I locked the doors, protocol during power outages. Through the glass, I saw more vehicles pulling into the lot. 3 SUVs, 2 pickup trucks, all with tinted windows. My cell phone had no signal. The landline was dead. People started getting out of the vehicles, moving with purpose, wearing heavy coats. The security cameras switched off. I ran to the back office and locked myself in. There was an old CB radio that truckers sometimes used. I turned it on. "Emergency. Shell station at exit 142. Anyone hearing this?" Static. Then, "Copy that. Shell station." "This is Big Blue. What's your situation?" I explained quickly. "Stay put. Got your location. State police already en route. Multiple stations. Getting hit tonight." I heard glass breaking in the store. Footsteps. "They're inside," I whispered into the radio. 5 minutes out, the trucker responded. "Keep transmitting." The office door handle jiggled. Male voice. "We know you're in there. Open up and you won't get hurt." I stayed silent. They started kicking the door. Suddenly, I heard engines. Lots of them. Through the tiny office window, I saw at least a dozen semi-trucks pulling into the lot, blocking all exits. Their headlights illuminated the entire station. The kicking stopped. Running footsteps. Vehicles peeling out. State police arrived 2 minutes later, but the crew was gone. Turns out they'd been hitting isolated gas stations all along I-95. They'd hack the card readers to collect data, then create fake outages to rob the places. The trucker, Big Blue, had been tracking their pattern up the interstate. He'd rallied other truckers on the CB to help. They never caught the crew, but every gas station in 3 states upgraded their security. I still work nights at Shell, but now I'm never alone on shift. And whenever I hear a truck's air horn, I wave. Because truckers? They're the real heroes of the highway.
Story 4.
I have been managing all safe storage for 3 years now. It's usually a quiet job. People come, they go, they store their stuff. Simple, at least it was until last New Year's Eve. I was working late, covering for my assistant manager. The facility was pretty much dead. Nobody wants to deal with their storage unit during the holidays. It was just me, my coffee, and about 300 empty storage units. Around 9 p.m., Mrs. Chen from Unit 223 called. She couldn't access the facility with her key code. "That's weird," I said, checking the system. "Your code shows as recently changed." "What? I haven't changed it?" I pulled up her file. The code had been changed that morning, while I was off. "Come by the office," I told her. "I'll sort it out." When she arrived, she had more concerning news. My credit card company called today. Someone tried to open 3 new cards in my name. Something clicked in my mind. Last week, Mr. Peterson had the same issue with his code. He'd also mentioned identity theft. I started digging through recent records. In the past month, 12 customers had requested code changes. All had units in the same section of the facility. "Mrs. Chen, when was the last time you visited your unit?" 2 weeks ago. Why?" I pulled up the security footage. Someone had accessed her unit yesterday using her code. "That's not me," she said, staring at the screen. The person in the video knew exactly where they were going. They moved with purpose. My cell phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "Stop checking the records." I showed Mrs. Chen out, promising to investigate. As soon as she left, I called the police. While waiting, I heard noises from Section C, where all the compromised units were located. The cameras in that section had been malfunctioning for days. Protocol said to wait for the police. But if someone was stealing from our customers... I grabbed my flashlight and master keycard. Section C was dark. The motion sensor lights weren't working. Using my phone's flashlight, I checked unit numbers. 223 225 227. Unit 229's door was slightly open. From inside, I heard computers humming. I knew I should wait for the cops, but I needed to know. I pulled the door open. The unit was full of computers, printers, and stacks of papers, credit card statements, bank documents, social security numbers, an identity theft operation, right under my nose. My phone buzzed again. Shouldn't have looked. The facility's power went out. In the darkness, I heard footsteps. Multiple people. I ducked into an empty unit, pulling the door almost shut. Voices approached. "Servers off. Grab the hard drives. What about the documents? Burn them." Flashlight beams swept past my hiding spot. My phone lit up with another text. "We can see you." The footsteps got closer. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure they could hear it. Then from outside, police sirens. Shit. Out the back gate. Running footsteps. Doors slamming. When the police found me, I was still in the empty unit. The investigation revealed everything. The thieves had been renting units using stolen identities. They'd hacked our security system to get access codes. They'd been stealing mail from the entire neighborhood, using people's personal information to open credit cards. The crazy part? They'd been doing this at storage facilities across 3 states. They caught 2 guys trying to flee through the back gate. The others escaped. The police found equipment for printing fake IDs, credit card skimmers, and files on hundreds of potential victims. Most disturbing? They found detailed notes about facility employees, our schedules, routines, even photos of us coming and going. They'd been watching us for months, waiting for the perfect time to clean everything out. All safe. Installed new security systems after that. Every code change now requires in-person verification. I still manage the place, but now I check every unusual code change personally, and I never work alone on holidays. Sometimes I wonder about those text messages. How did they get my number? I changed my phone number, moved to a new apartment, but I still get nervous every time I walk past Section C.